College basketball season is in full swing, and NIT season tip-off returns to Brooklyn on November 24th. It'll feature Baylor, Oregon State, Florida, and Pittsburgh. Joining me to talk some college hoops is a college basketball analyst for ESPN and the former coach of Manhattan College and St. John's. That would be Fran Frischilla. Fran, how you doing?
Dexter, I'm doing great today. The season is underway, which makes me happy. It's Christmas morning this past week, so I'm ready to go.
No. I know you're excited about it. College basketball is back, and so I'm going to start off, Fran, while we talk locally. Let's talk about St. John's, team you used to coach. A lot of buzz around the Red Storm with head coach Rick Pitino. What have you made of their start to the season, and are you concerned about their lack of front court depth that we've seen this far?
Well, I think when you take over a program nowadays, especially one as storied as St. John's, and you have to live in the transfer portal, they actually did a reasonably good job of putting together a roster. But I know most of the players that transferred to St. John's, and this is going to be a work in progress. Coach Pitino is a great coach. I expect them to be competing for NCAA tournament appearances right away. It's not going to surprise me if they're in a Sweet 16 in a couple of years. But this team is, the way it was constructed with transfers, it definitely has some holes. And I think we saw the other night against Michigan that holes up front are obvious. Chris Letterman's a kid that played at Harvard. He's a kid from my neighborhood in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. And Chris also played for one of my sons at Harvard. So he is going to have some adjustments, but he's really talented. And Coach Pitino is going to get the most out of this team, regardless of the lack of the front court depth.
Well, no matter what, you think it'll be a good season for St. John's. Fans here are very excited about that. And Fran, look, I know you keep your eye on New York hoops, being a Brooklynite and New Yorker, but other than St. John's, which men's basketball program do you think has a chance to make some real noise this year here in the Big Apple?
Well, it's interesting, Dexter. There's a lot of teams rebuilding as far as college basketball programs. You look at what Shaheen Holloway is doing over at Seton Hall in year 2. They could be dangerous. They're picked towards the bottom of the Big East, but they have an excellent backcourt led by Kadari Richmond, Syracuse transfer from Brooklyn. And so I like what Shaheen is doing in year 2. Tobin Anderson, after a great run at FDU, he's rebuilding at Iona. John Gallagher coaching at my old place, again, rebuilding. So the theme right now, I honestly think is rebuilding. Now, Speedy Claxton's done a really good job at Hofstra. They should be very dangerous. But the college basketball scene right now in New York, you got a lot of terrific young coaches who are building their programs back up.
Yeah, and that is an exciting time for Big Apple college basketball fans to see and watch right now. Should be really fun this season. Want to take things nationally right here, Coach, because right now Kansas, they're the #1 team in the country. Do you like the Jayhawks to win it all this year, or is there another team that you have your eye on as the best team in college basketball right now?
Well, of course, as you know, Dexter, I spend a lot of time in the Big 12, and I know KU well, coming off a big win over Kentucky last night. They are currently #1. I've watched them practice. They have a terrific player, an All-American in Hunter Dickinson, the Michigan transfer. I'm worried about their depth for sure. They only have 9 scholarship players active. But they have a couple really outstanding players besides Mickelson. DeJuan Harris, a 5th-year guy now, one of the best point guards in the country. Kevin McCullough as well has played well for Bill Self. Because I know that league so well, I would tell you that a team, and we'll talk about them. I'll save it for the NIT, the preseason NIT tip-off. But Baylor's very good, and they've off to a good start. But nationally, keep your eye on Creighton for sure. I think UConn's going to have another bomb squad. Those two teams jump out at me. Obviously Purdue in the Big 10 with Zach Edey coming back. So there's some really good basketball. The overwhelming theme right now in college hoops is older players because of the transfer portal. And a lot of guys in college basketball still have that 5th COVID year of eligibility, which makes these teams very experienced.
And that experience definitely can help come in March. We've seen that the last couple of years in the tournament, how the experience can help some of these schools that are trying to win it all. Now, Fran, we said you were going to talk about the NIT season tip-off. Let's talk about that. That goes down at Barclays Center next week. Why is this such a great event for local college basketball fans to come and check out?
Well, it's got great history. You know, the preseason NIT is one of those events during Feast Week, Thanksgiving week. that has great tradition and history. It's at the Barclays Center, a place you and I know well because we're both Brooklynites. And basketball in New York is still really important. We talked about Pitino and St. John's. When you bring good college basketball to the city, and particularly to Brooklyn, to Barclays Center, it's a big deal. Baylor, former national champ, is loaded. Keep your eye, Dexter, on a young man by the name of Jacoby Walter, 6'5" freshman from Dallas. Scott Drew's the only coach in America who has had 3 top 16 NBA draft picks in the last 3 years. And barring any injury, he's got a 4th in Jacoby Walter. I think he's a top 5 pick. I really like Pittsburgh. They're improving under Jeff Capel and have some really good transfers. They have a freshman by the name of Bub Carrington from Baltimore, the Charm City. Toughness is in the DNA in Baltimore. He's averaging 18 a game. He'll be fun to watch. Florida's better under Todd Golden, and Oregon State, a team with some young players out west in the current Pac-12. We'll see where they go next year. A good team on the rise. But Baylor, Florida, and Pittsburgh all have a chance, I think, legitimately to go deep in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, you made me excited here, and I'm going to be a little selfish in my next question because you mentioned my alma mater, Pittsburgh, my Pitt Panthers. They're playing in the tip-off. So I got to ask you about them. And you mentioned the young player from Baltimore, the freshman, who's looked really good thus far. How good do you think the Panthers can be this season? Can they build off of last season's run to the second round of the NCAA tournament? Can the Panthers take the next step?
Yeah, they can. They can. They lost some good players, as you know, because you're a former Panther. And Jeff Capel, the 14 wins is the most ever by Pitt in the ACC. And then they obviously got to the second round of the tournament last year. Yes, they are on the rise. Ishmael Leggett is a transfer from URI, who's already had a great impact on the early part of the season. I mentioned Bub Carrington. Alums like you, Dexter, ought to be really excited. This kid's a 6'6" point guard who is only the 2nd player in the history of the ACC to record a triple-double in his freshman debut. The only other guy to do that was a pretty good player, Dennis Scott at Georgia Tech, who had a long and storied NBA career. So Jeff Capel's doing a great job in Pittsburgh. They have size up front. The guard play is going to be outstanding. And I expect them to make some noise in the ACC. Would not surprise me if they end up in the top 5 in a league with 15 teams. That's pretty good.
Oh, man, you got me excited, Fran. I like this. I know all the Pitt fans out there, they're going to be excited. I got to make my trip down to the Peterson Event Center for a game this season. All right, last thing for me, Fran. I'm going to put you in the prediction hot seat here. Out of the 4 teams playing at the NIT season tip-off, which team do you think will come out on top?
Well, the favorite would be Baylor, certainly, Dexter. They, they're already off to a great start. They're 4-0. They beat a good Auburn team up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I mentioned the freshman, Jacoby Walter. They've got, it's the deepest team Scott Drew's ever had, which is saying something when you think of the great job he's done. So can they lose? Of course they can. Florida and Pitt particularly are dangerous teams. But if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but that's prevalent these days, I think there's no question Baylor will be the favorite to win this tournament. And, but again, that's why we play these games. And that's why, Pitt and Florida and Oregon State all are looking forward to coming to New York. By the way, not only to play good basketball, but Thanksgiving, as you and I both know, in the city is a special place to be. And so all those kids on those 4 teams coming to New York, many of them have never stepped foot in the Big Apple, are in for a real treat. Barclays is a great place, and, it's going to be a fun tournament.
Got to be a fun tournament for sure. I'm looking forward to it. I will be there to see my Pitt Panthers, at least for opening night. That is next Wednesday, November 22nd, for the NIT tip-off. Fran Frischilla, he's going to be there as well. He will be bringing you all the analysis, as he does for ESPN covering college basketball. Fran, always good to talk to you. I always say this. It's always good to talk to a fellow Brooklynite. Definitely good to talk to you, and always good to talk some college hoops. Thank you, man.
Dexter, it's my pleasure. We'll see you down at the Barclays Center.
I'll see you soon. Thank you.